This is SA Today. Let's continue with your bulletin now. Cyril Ramaphosa will tomorrow embark on his working visit to the US amid high tensions between the two countries over what the Trump administration accuses South Africa of a multitude of wrongdoings, including white farmer or Afrikaner genocide, as well as race-based laws. Now, expectations are high that the two can actually reset their bilateral relations and continue trading without any hostility. John Matisonn is a political analyst, and he joins us now to give us his insight on this upcoming visit. John, it's great to have you with us. A very good afternoon. So let's hear your views on this trip. What are your expectations before and after this engagement? All right, it seems like I've lost my analyst there, John Matisonn. I'm hoping to try and re-establish connection to him because I'm trying to get a sense of, what political analysts are actually thinking about Cyril Ramaphosa alongside his four ministers that will be jetting off to the United States from tomorrow. And of course, I understand Mr. Matisonn is actually back. So, John, a very good afternoon to you. I was saying thank you so much for joining us. And I just wanted to know, what are some of your views on this trip? What are your expectations before as well as after this upcoming engagement?
Well, the fact is Donald Trump is extremely unpredictable. True. It's high stakes for us in South Africa. It's just another deal. He can mess us around if he wants to, and he can do it because he's got power. So it's a very unpredictable situation. I'm sure that we'll see Cyril Ramaphosa in the Oval Office sitting next to him like the others have done. We don't know if he'll treat him like Zelensky or like somebody more he wants to be kinder to. I think that President Ramaphosa will keep his cool. He's very charming. He doesn't lose his temper or anything, so he'll be very moderate in the way he speaks. But the issues underlying it are tough because Trump and his people want a change in our Israel policy and they want a change in our BEE policy. And those are really big issues for the ANC.
That's exactly the point, John. I wanted to ask, what should Team South Africa's then communication/crisis plan actually entail, especially on those pertinent issues regarding, as you've just said, trade as well as misinformation, which we know, John, that Trump is well aware that what he's spewing has been incorrect. This is just a ploy on his part to either one, as you suggested, embarrass South Africa, or simply wants to strong arm or dictate to us into reconsidering our position at the ICJ case against Israel, inadvertently disregarding our sovereignty.
Well, look, the fact is, if you look at his method of negotiating, he always does this. He attacks very viciously first. So he says it's a genocide and so on. Remember, with Canada, he said, "I'm going to take over your country," and then but that's a deliberate tactic from him. You can see it in his book, The Art of the Deal. So he starts off very tough, and he gets your attention, and he believes that way he gets a deal that's better than he would have got otherwise. So he knows that we want to do a deal. We want to accommodate him if we can, and the question we just don't know the answer to is, what would he really settle for? I think he might be more keen on fighting the BEE issue. Is there a substitute for ownership that could accommodate both sides? I see it's very difficult to imagine that succeeding, but that somewhere there's got to be a breakthrough because we need it.
Absolutely. And Trump being very transactional, South Africa definitely needs to come into that meeting with some sort of deal there, John. We know that Ramaphosa has long maintained that the strained relationships, the relationship with the US was just a hiccup. And he said not to be breaking a sweat, apparently, over this trip. But reality, John, is that 49 Afrikaners did immigrate to the United States under Trump's special program. And we have seen reaction globally to this particular move move, the looming exclusion of South Africa from AGOA, the tariffs, as well as PEPFAR funding withdrawal. From our vantage point, I mean, Trump is fully committed to taking drastic measures and action in his push for his narrative to be a reality, to get whatever he wants. Because, John, those Afrikaners in the States, what message, firstly, are they also selling about South Africa? And then should the two eventually mend their relations, what is to happen to this departed group? Reports are already indicating that the United States is still expecting more Afrikaner refugees to actually arrive in the United States in the next month. So where does that leave us as a nation in terms of our global reputation?
Well, look, most of the American media has not accepted his claim that there's genocide in South Africa. There's no evidence of it. And most of the American media have said, we understand there's a high volume of crime in South Africa, but it affects everybody. And in fact, it affects black people worse than it affects whites. But it's not a targeted attack on whites as a people or anything like that. So I'm less concerned with the 49, I believe it's actually 59 people. I think you're right, there will be more to come. But that's not the biggest concern. The real concern is how do we get good trade relations? How do we get investment and so on from America and elsewhere? Because, you know, Trump can use his power to hurt us in other ways.
And that's my question, John. I mean, I think you forgot this part of the question. What compromise then will South Africa have to make in order to, well, I suppose, get back into bed with Trump?
You know, the only thing I can think of is, you know, we have a black empowerment, but there's also an alternative option. It's called, I can't remember exactly what it's called. If, you know, maybe something like that. That's the only place I can see it. Because frankly, it's very hard to see how the two sides can meet. I think, you know, Trump is completely capable of changing his mind about what matters to him. I know he would love us to change our position on the ICJ case, but I think the ANC have made the government has made it clear that that's not that's not an option. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, he's going to. There's a good chance he'll have Elon Musk with him in the room, and they might say to him, "We want Elon Musk to come in with Starlink. Is there a way we can do that?" And focus more on that in the end than the Israel issue, which will also come up, of course.
And then long-term lessons that South Africa should have learned through this debacle, John. What do you think?
You know, really, I'm really obsessed with South African growth. My last book, Cyril's Choice, was all about that. We can get growth in South Africa. It's a question of our domestic policy. And if you want to be respected by Washington, the best thing we can do for ourselves is get our growth going and job creating and creating jobs. And that can be done. It requires radical rethinking by the ANC, not necessarily on the lines of neoliberalism or on the lines that we hear from the Americans, but we've got to find our own solutions that really create jobs. We've got to try things. I mean, learn from the Chinese. The Chinese tried things and they failed, and then they tried something else and failed until they found things that worked. But you can't leave the status quo. You've got to be willing to try new things. And there are experts around. I mean, I've wrote a whole book about it, but there are others who've written books about it too. And that's what gives us power. And also that's what will give us respect from Trump.
Mm-hmm. And John, maybe in closing, of course, we are optimistic for successes of this resetting of course, diplomatic ties as well as trade bilateral ties with the United States. But I mean, realistically, what if the opposite becomes true?
Well, look, I think we're in for a hard time. I think our chances of keeping AGOA are actually quite small because he doesn't like that AGOA as such. Even if it wasn't South Africa, even if it wasn't his other issues, he doesn't like it. But, you know, so to some extent, we've got to weather him. He's the worst, you know, from South Africa's point of view, he's the worst American president we've had to deal with. We have to survive the next 4 years. We have no idea what the next one will be like. But honestly, The only solution for South Africa is job-creating growth.
John, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for engaging with us. Hopefully, I'd actually like to engage with you post this trip and just, gauge how these engagements actually played out. John, we're going to leave it there. That is Mr. John Matisonn. There is a political commentator and journalist on the upcoming SA-US working visit, which starts officially tomorrow.